One of the top things that I like to use Runecast Analyzer for myself is one of the bigger pain points in my mind of being a VM sysadmin and a system administrator generally is troubleshooting complicated or complex issues and problems in the environment. I don't know how many times, in the past, over the years, you have problems in the environment, people reporting issues, applications down, virtual machines running slow, those types of things, infrastructure related issues, and so on and so forth. And you just spend hours and days troubleshooting, possibly getting support engaged from VMware, multiple people engaged, and coming to find out that there was some change or in the storage arena or from the storage array perspective or frames perspective to narrowing it down to something going on with a compatibility between a driver set, a firmware version that's being run, etc. But that's really what I'm trying to address here today, and again illustrate why I like Runecast and use it. Is really getting all of the data from my environment in a simple scan and analysis performed and checking for these things and giving me all the data that I need to help aid me in troubleshooting complex issues. So let's jump right into it. I'm sharing, my web client for my analyzer in my lab environment. And, with Runecast, there's really a plethora of data that's gathered once you perform an analysis in your environment. And, we do have the main menu where all of the data is compiled into presentable type of material. So you can always work from it or the all issues view and so on and so forth. But what I want to focus on at the moment in troubleshooting complex issues are the specific areas around the KBs and the best practices, the hardware compatibility, and the log analysis that Runecast Analyzer performs because, complex issues are generally, I use the term quite often, needle in a haystack type of scenario where it's not something that's obvious. It's not something that you're going to see immediately from like vCenter server or things of that nature that you have to dig it and into a little bit, gather information, manually from the server, etc. So, with that being said, wanted to highlight and illustrate Runecast and how it can help and aid in troubleshooting these things. So, I'm highlighting the config KBs discovered. When you analyze your environment, whether it's your AWS environment or your on-prem VMware environment, the analysis is taking place. 30,000 plus checks are being performed, and comparing your configuration to VMware's KBs, also best practices, hardware and security. But let's dive into the KBs. So we do have all of this data and I just wanted to show some of these items that have been discovered in my environment. If I dig in here, I've got all kinds of different things related to purple screen. As always, we're going to show you under the findings tab the objects that are configured and have this relation to this KB article. At a high level, I can see what it applies to, what it affects, the product that I'm illustrating, or it's having an effect on being vSphere, the number of objects that are identified, and so on and so forth. So purple screen, VMFS volumes. This is an interesting one where your host might crash while closing. VMFS 6 volumes. It's a known issue. It's been documented. It's patched basically and remediated in 6.5 and 6.7 update 1. But at the end of the day, if you're having problems with your virtual machines or your host servers, obviously you're going to come in here and you're going to see a lot of information that can help you and resolve those issues. So we have that in the KBs. We also have best practices. Essentially, this is how your, recommendations from VMware, how you should have things configured. This can also lead to troubleshooting and identifying underlying problems in the environment that help you in troubleshooting. Hardware compatibility, this is another one. It's your hardware stack. So, without question, there's going to be and likely something that's identified within your hardware stack that's flagging some sort of error. But what I wanted to illustrate, with the log analysis, we do the logs and check your host logs against KBs discovered as well, see if there's any relation. But log inspector is what I wanted to kind of show in this. These are the logs that are ported in from your host servers, filtered on these keywords, these 4 keywords. And the intent behind this in Runecast is to help speed up troubleshooting effort. So that's the whole intent of the log analysis, really, is to help aid us in troubleshooting problems. And on topic of this, troubleshooting complex issues. In here, you can sort by host. If I look through here, I can expand it. I've got this deneb 60-2 is it's got a ton of logs in here. Let me just pull that up and look at it. You can sort by program. Is it memory, host, file system, kernel? Okay. I can sort on what might be happening here. But if I look at one of these, I'm looking at deneb 60-2. I have a ton of vSAN mount failed to resolve logs, and obviously vSAN items that are being identified. So, if I happen to have a SAN issue or trouble with virtual machines or, anything of that nature, then regarding the storage, this is going to highlight it. This is the high level, but my point with this is in the logs you can almost always correlate what you're seeing in the logs back to the other sections of the configuration analysis, whether it's a KB, a best practice, or the hardware compatibility. But again, I'll highlight deneb 60-2. I'll go into hardware compatibility. Just because it's storage related, I want to see if there's any storage adapter issues that I'm seeing on that server. So if I highlight that vCenter and highlight that host and expand it, then sure enough, I've got some vSAN controller flags that are showing that I might have a problem. So this HP Smart Array controller, if I scroll down and see what's red, I'll see that there's a firmware being flagged. And Runecast now shows in the latest version, it'll show not found in HCL, but this could mean it's in a version of the HCL that's older than 6.0. So Runecast supports the HCL portion of Runecast supports ESXi 6.0 or newer. So that's what we're trying to illustrate here. If you hover over it, we explain it here. But just to give you an idea, so if I go back to the logs, see all the SAN issues and vSAN mount issues, it's likely tied to this. And that's just what I wanted to highlight. This is an example. As always, Runecast not only identifies the issue, but gives you the resolution. So it's telling me this card in the firmware version is not compatible, but we give you a list of supported configurations down below. So that's just one example of many. There's hundreds and hundreds of examples I could probably walk through, but I wanted to show that, illustrate that issue. Obviously, I have some firmware to go update my environment and help ensure my environment's healthy. So with that being said, just one of many examples to provide on showing how you can leverage and use Runecast Analyzer. Again, all this data is gathered in minutes. It doesn't take days or weeks to gather this information like it would take you to do manually. But again, using Runecast to help you troubleshoot complex issues. Again, this is, easy way to do it. Let it do it automatically instead of gathering this stuff manually.